Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today, I just wanted to dive into a couple more things about the first limb. Before that, I wanted to point out that in the syllabus, we have finished all of those required points that were covered on the 14th-15th. And we're here, and I've uploaded everything related to the upper limb bones and joints, except for two more videos concerning the pronation, supination joints and the joints of the hands. So I'll just dive into this probably right now so that we can just cover everything in the upper limb, and then we're going to go further to discuss the pelvic gird, hip bone, skeleton of the lower limb, and bones of the foot. Okay? All right, without further ado, come on, what the fuck is this? Yes, so open the damn book. Sorry. All right. So we'll do this. And yeah, so the joints of the hand, I will discuss those quickly. And we will dive into first the superior radioulnar joint and the inferior radioulnar joint and the middle radioulnar joint. So these are part of the forearm. They're basically pivot joints, okay? So the radioulnar joint, it's called superior because there's two of them. So I don't like them. I don't like to call them superior and inferior. I like to call them proximal, closer to my body. Okay, proximal, which is kind of here, and distal, which is here. Okay, and I'll tell you exactly how those are situated on your arm. So first off, the proximal radioulnar joint, and from its name, we know that it's proximal, closer to us, to the, let's say, to the heart region, and radioulnar. So it's between the radius and the ulna. Okay, and Sariski, when you're going to be discussing the elbow joint, he'll tell you, is that it? And probably he wants to hear the proximal radioulnar joint, the joint between the radius and ulna, closer to the elbow. Okay, and this joint is between basically the circumference of the head of the radius. That's the head of the radius. And if you don't know what this is, that's the annular ligament around the head of the radius. Okay, and so this head right here articulates with this part of the ulna. If you say it right here, it's called the radial notch. Okay, so the radial notch of the ulna and the annular ligament, you see, there we are. So the annular ligament attaches to the ulna and extends around the circumflex of the head of the radius. Okay, so you have to know this joint is between the head of the radius, okay, the circumference of it, and the radial notch of the ulna and the annular ligament surrounding the radial head. That's basically the whole point of the joint. Now there is a capsule as well, covers the annular ligament. Okay, it is continuous with the capsule of the elbow joint, okay, and it is loosely attached to the neck of the radius, okay, loosely attached to the neck of the radius. So that's the tubercle of the radius, and there's a neck just between the head and the tubercle, okay. So ligaments involved are the annular ligament, which is just around here. You see, that's the head of the radius without the annular ligament, and that's how it looks when the annular ligament is present. And then you have the quadrate ligament. It is a thin quadrangular fibrous band. It's just between the radial notch and the neck of the radius. And you can see the joint right here, the ligament right here, okay? Movements. So remember I told you this? So these joints help. Pronation, supination, this movement, that's what's written here. Supination and pronation, Okay, and that's basically it for the superior or proximal radial ulnar joint. Next, we're going to discuss the what's called the distal radial ulnar joint, and the distal radial ulnar joint is also a pivot joint. Okay, so what's the involvement or what's the articulation right here? So here the articular surfaces are the head of the ulna medially and the ulnar notch of the lower end of the radius. You see, it's now switched. There's a head of the radius, okay, and the ulnar notch of the head of the ulna and the ulnar notch of the radius. So basically, that head of the ulna just dives into the ulnar notch of the radius, and that's how it is. So you have the head of the ulna right here, okay, and it dives into, see, it's labeled the ulnar notch of the radius, and that's the radius. Okay. Um, and there's a triangular articular disc inferiorly. This is just, remember when we talked about the wrist joints, and there's an articular disc here, just on the head of the radius, so that it articulates with the carpal bones. So part of the articular disc articulates also with the radius. So that's it. And of course, it has a capsule, and they're just here describing the articular disc. It's a band of fiber cartilage. Okay, movements: pronation, supination, and those two, the distal and proximal radioulnar joints, allow for pronation, supination. Again, finally, we have the middle radioulnar joint, and this is a type of, if you know your joints by now, it's called a fibrous type joint. And I think it's a syndesmosis. I can't remember. Oh, it's an interosseus. Yes, it's an interosseus, but I think it's a type of syndesmosis because there's no movements whatsoever in this joint. What this is, it's a strong fibrous tissue membrane stretching between the interosseous borders of radius and ulna. If you have studied the radius and ulna yet, there's three borders within their structure. And remember when I told you if you cut the radius and the ulna, you cut them and it'll be a triangular shape. Now the borders pointing towards each other. So these are the, this is my arm, okay. And if you see right here in the middle, you would know that this fibrous joint right here exists in the middle, and you will see that the interosseous borders of both the radius and the ulna are pointing towards each other, and and they're basically these edges right here, these borders. They're called the interosseous borders. Why? It comes from the interosseous membrane that holds together the radius and ulna. Okay, it is attached, let's see, attached to the interosseous borders of both bones. Okay. This is just the direction of the fibers. They're just moving downwards. Okay, that's what they're meaning here. And there are some openings in the interosseous membrane, and these are for passages of some arteries. For example, you'll be taking the posterior interosseous artery. You see right here, it pokes through this this membrane, and you can see it's labeled with posterior interosseous artery right there. And then the anterior interosseous arterial vessel just runs down like that. And basically, that's it for the joints of the radius and the ulna, basically. And I will now dive into the bones of the hand. They're the joints of the carpal bones, okay? And I'll do that in the next video quickly. All right, thank you guys for this video, and hope to see you guys in the next one. Stop sharing and stop recording.